Greetings! What is going on, heathens? I'm Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth, and you are listening to the Ave Satanas podcast. Join Jack, Chris, and Cy, and the rest of the sinners of the Free Society Satanists as they bring you their world of anarchistic Satanism. Hail, Satan!
Satan, 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 our Lord and Master, I acknowledge thee as my God and Prince. I promise to serve and obey thee as long as I shall live. I renounce the other God and all the saints. Don't listen to them! Don't listen to them!
Welcome back to the Ave Satanas podcast and our mini-series, Might Ain't Right. My name is Jack Violently. I'm going to be your host today. The Ave Satanas podcast is a presentation of the Free Society Satanist. We are a worldwide collective of anarchistic Satanists under the banner of the Global Order of Satan. For more information and how to join us on Discord, make sure to check the links in the show notes below. We've also added a Support the Show tab down there where you can directly donate to our fundraising efforts, currently the Trevor Project. All right, so here to help me today, sitting in the producer's chair, the co-founder of the Free Society Satanist, Cy. What's going on?
Not much. Just learning about bathing and cannibalism and pheromones and yeah.
I was going to ask you, what did you have for dinner tonight?
I had the Burger King Jack-o'-lantern Whopper.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Also with us today from Capital Area Satanist, our good friend Felo. What's going on?
Hello, everyone. Good to be back as always.
Felo, what did you have for dinner tonight?
My partner made some French baguettes, and we had a French dip, which I had to be instructed on what that even is. It's like a sandwich that you have a little soup next to it that you dip the sandwich in.
Yep.
And we had it with a lot of mushrooms, a lot of onion. I don't know what all else went into it, but it was fantastic.
I think they call that an au jus, a little language lesson for those listening at the house.
Which is fancier than my normal dinners tend to be, so lest I give a false impression, I am not above a Whopper, although I go the impossible route.
And we are also joined by my good friend, your good friend, hell, our good friend, Queer Satanic. David, what's going on today?
Howdy. Yeah, I am over in Seattle. So it's only 6 p.m. here. But also in a very Seattle way, what I've had so far and probably gonna have for dinner is coffee. I am drinking coffee for dinner.
So I could ask 100 monkeys with 100 typewriters, and I bet we wouldn't land on today's episode. Why are we going to be talking about cannibalism today?
Well, because that is the primary subject of this chapter of Might Is Right by Ragnar Redbeard. His real name is Arthur Desmond. He was a New Zealand, then Australian, ultimately Chicago egoist writer who is really racist, really anti-Semitic, really misogynistic, and also apparently he was very interested in cannibalism. So this title, Man the Carnivore, you're like, is this going to be an allegory for something? And the answer is yes, but actually no. He just really wants to talk about eating people a lot. With that in mind, I hope that people have listened to some of our previous stuff before, just because there's a whole lot of anti-Semitism and racism in this that, just for the sake of redundancy, we're largely going to skip over. It is present. It is really important to understanding what's going to go on in all of this stuff, but we're kind of counting on you to just understand that so we don't have to have the same conversations over and over again. Also, we are not going to talk about cannibalism nearly as much as Ragnar does. There's really not that much to say. He probably needed an actual editor as opposed to just a pseudonym to cut this down and stop multiplying examples of like one of his fixations, right? He really wanted to talk about this. I think he really wanted to eat people literally, and he's just like coming up with an excuse to do that. But a lot of these examples aren't even true. So we're going to talk about some of them, but just not nearly to the amount at which he talks about it. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how he seems to contradict himself by being super into literal actual cannibalism, but talking about allegorical cannibalism as bad. But when you understand that he thinks that cannibalism by people like him is good and cannibalism of people like him is bad, it all kind of resolves itself and makes sense. With that, is everybody ready to dive into this? Really, yeah. Are y'all prepared? You prepared yourself for like dive into this?
If we say no, can we just stop right here?
So anyway,
Got him.
Stop the bus.
You thought you figured out a way out. Okay. So what we have as we go through this is we have identified things we think are actually good, things we think are just weird, and things we think are real bad. And so that's sort of what the color coding is for people to see. Yellow is weird, and so the very first line is, "It has taken countless evolutionary epochs to make man what he is, the most ferocious hirsute beast of prey that inhabits the caverns and jungles of the earth." And I just was struck by that because, like, one of the things about humanity is that we're really not that hairy. That's what a hirsute beast is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't actually live in caverns and jungles that much. And this connects to that second section under there where it says, "Can his structural anatomy intended for conflict and slaughter be transformed in a day, a year, or even a million suns?" And like, that's evolution. Like, that's my guy. Like, that's the whole point of Darwinism, is that a lot of time transforms like people's bodies, or any animal's bodies. But like, yeah, there is no like essential essence to any of this stuff. It's just things change over time. But that's sort of like what he's operating on, is this, I don't know, atavistic idea of how evolution works, where there's like the purest, best thing wins out and like conquers and triumphs. It's not true. But that's just, in another book, this would be bad. In this book, to me, that's just weird.
Right.
And it's a running theme throughout this chapter, especially his misunderstanding, willful or not, of Darwinian evolution.
Yeah. And we go down, we see a kind of a good section where it says, "We may be going to the devil," is the unspoken retort of these thundering legionnaires, these nations, "but even so, is not the devil honest, the destroyer of deception, the disobedient one?" And I like, cool reference to Satanism, or whatever. Because for people who don't know, Anton LaVey plagiarized this book massively for the Satanic Bible, and so going back into that, is there anything really there? There's not, but there are all these like occasional references that like, actually the devil's the good guy because he hates Christianity, and basically he's so anti-Semitic he hates Christianity. So that's one of the good references. And I thought like this was a pretty good line altogether. If the high road leads through hells, then those infernos must be besieged, assailed, and taken possession of. Even if their present monarchs have to be rooted out with weapons as demoniac and deadly as their own. That's a pretty hard line, I felt like.
It is. That goes harder than paint.
Yeah. So these are in there, but you have to you really have to look at them in a complete vacuum, because as you can see, he goes on to just talk about like the world is too peaceful now. Things are too. He's writing in like 1890s about how the world is too peaceful, which is one of the most violent, bloody times in terms of like colonization, even in America. And so there is no time in these guys, these kinds of like reactionary dudes who want like a better past they want to get back to. They'll never be happy, because we can look back and see how racist it was and how unequal it was. And his complaints is that it's not racist enough. It's not more unequal. Sai, though, looks like we have a good quote from you coming up.
Yeah. So this one, undoubtedly the black magic of the Christ myth combined with the subterranean sorcery of medieval sacerdotalism has partially succeeded not only in sapping individual initiative, but also in suppressing in our race many of its ancestral leonine traits and superb barbarian virtues. Honestly,
It's a good one. Sorry, I didn't highlight that wrong. That's a good one for you.
so here's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. It's like it would be good if he didn't keep going. So like the good part for me was the black magic of the Christ myth, because that would be a killer fucking band. That would be a really cool band. But, you know, then he's like, okay, we gotta make this somehow racist and, you know, invoke the white race and how somehow white people who have not been around lions at that time, like not indigenous to any area that has lions, somehow has leonine traits. Again,
Yes.
you know, it just, so it was like, it started out pretty black metal, and then it got even more black metal derogatory. So that's why I had it under good, because it was good, and then it was like, oh, you kept going.
Both sides.
Yeah.
What this reminds me of is a Tumblr post that I just saw recently. I'm dropping that in the chat. But the user says, the lion does not concern itself with the bank account balance when a little
That meme has been flying around on TikTok lately too, and I'm just like, oh god, because that was literally the first thing I also thought of when I read that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But like that thing you were saying about like associating with like leonine traits, even though there's not anywhere associated with lions, or whatever. Like it's interesting how far back it goes, because this sort of talk you could see on like a Manosphere podcast or TikToks or whatever. Like this is written in 1896, and like it's really hasn't changed much since then. It's still doing the same sort of thing, which I don't know. I think it is helpful to see that they don't really have new tricks. Okay, if we can go down to the next section.
Do you want to do this yellow part or down to this red?
Skip the lioness of the lion part.
Okay.
Because
we're going right into it. Okay.
Sort of. Yeah. So he's. So the red part has the anti-Semitism. He's doing this a lot. I was going to jump to first, in obedience to some sovereign code, they lose their hardiness and increase their numbers, which I think Felo in the notes had said that's actually sort of the whole point of evolution, is to increase your numbers. He just doesn't get it. And then also just that he has this concept of the normal man does this stuff. The normal man that loves feasts and fights and hunts, the predatory man, that's normal. And then the abnormal man is the Christly dog. But he says the entire time that like almost nobody is like that. It's like the normal man is the one that almost nobody is, and the abnormal one is what almost everybody is, to his like categorization. And it's things I like are good and things I don't like are bad, and that really there's not a whole lot that's complicated about him beyond that. I don't know if y'all are also like agreeing with that as we go through it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also somewhere I'm flipping furiously to try and find it, somewhere where he accuses people who are upset by suffering they see in the world as crying crocodile tears, and I'm really loath to armchair analyze people, but that is psychopathic language. See, like that and his allusions to like, oh, you know, like when you throw a brick at a dog, that kind of sound that it makes. I'm like, this is definitely not a normal man.
Well, you know the sound, Fellow, when you throw a brick at a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that. I mean,
of course.
it's as common as a train whistle. I tell you what.
All right.
It's kind of like when he says, you can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting us something. It's someone for whom that's maybe not just a euphemism they picked up somewhere.
To what you were talking about, that line is, if we skip down to the next big red section, I don't want to read all of it. But
oh boy,
he has this thing. Yeah. Terror, torture, agony, and the wholesale destruction of feeble and worn out types must mark in future as in the past every step forward or backward in evolution, homoculture, and racial displacement. I think homoculture, the note that we got in our book, says that is another reference to dysgenics, which is like the opposite of eugenics. I wondered if it was like sameness, that he doesn't like sameness, if that's what that actually is. And it just reminded me of a Ghost in the Shell quote about how if everybody reacted the same way, then that would be slow death. But like, it's actually a weakness for everyone to be the same and react in the same way. And that was a thing that stuck with me, that just like the idea of diversity of strength, and that like we are not all vulnerable in the same way, we're not all strong in the same way, and we cooperate, that helps us. That is not what Ragnar Redbeard thinks at all. It's the exact opposite of that.
Dysgenics, I feel like I've heard that term before somewhere in some kind of website or something.
Yes, the co-owner and spokesman of the Aesthetic Temple ran a website called Dysgenics for at least 15 years until he got caught in 2018 and some of this stuff came up. And he also illustrated this book for people who hadn't heard that before. As we're going through this, the guy who owns and speaks to the Satanic Temple loved this book so much, he illustrated an edition of it in 2003. So just something to keep in mind.
A line from one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs, and every day the paperboy brings more.
Oh boy.
So as you go through here, you see it's all bad, and this like we're pulling good things out of it. It's just like, imagine that he's not saying horrible things. The man of today is actually built out of the grave mold of his prototypes, perhaps ages long forgotten. I did like that line, actually. That like we're built out of the things that came before us in this way. It's like that imagery I thought was like well phrased, but you have to pretend that he's not saying it in the middle of all that gross stuff.
Yeah, stuck in the middle
it's
of
like
a shit sandwich.
Yeah, I was just about to say, just directly sandwiched. Like there's just that little green, and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah, and Felo, you had something on this section, the bigger green block from Shelley, right?
Let's see. Oh yes, it's just that it's a quote where he says, Schelling says rather, when we solemnly look upon the perpetual conflicts, it fills us with shuddering sorrow and with boundless alarm. But how can we help it? Hence the veil of sadness that is spread over all nature, the deep indestructible melancholy of all life. And I thought that was a really beautiful, moving quote, and it's only in this book for Ragnar to be like, look at this idiot.
That sucks. It's wild how he like,
look at this guy crying about the earth.
He's like, hey yo, boo this guy.
Effing chat.
I know that like I'm gonna like date myself pretty badly, but there's an old Seinfeld episode where George is like, I just have to take my every impulse and do the opposite of that. He's really successful, and that is actually like a pretty good way to understand like reading this stuff. Like whatever impulses Ragnar Redbeard has, if you do the opposite of that, you're probably gonna be okay 90% of the time. If we can skip down to the tiny red section, there's like a strip of red. And it's so stupid. I don't know. It's not actually like that evil, but Christ may come and Christ may go, but Caesar is forever, is what it says.
The salad?
It's just this. Yeah. It's just the stupidest thing. Like, okay, like whatever you say about fucking Jesus, and also like weirdly this podcast has become like the Jesus Defense Hour or whatever.
Right.
There's kind of famously lots of Caesars. actually they came and went all the fucking time. They died and overthrew each other all the fucking time. And there's kind of just like one Jesus, like that religion. Like there have been other people that said, I'm Jesus returned, but like many smaller. And like that one guy is like still adored to this day. And who actually adores Julius Caesar or Augustus? Or I know that there are like Twitter guys that have the marble statue profile pics, but like I don't think that really is equivalent to the way that Christ is treated. And it's so stupid. And it just anyway.
So you don't think about the Roman Empire that often in the day, do you?
Oh my god, that Wait,
Number
David.
One, how dare you? Number two, yeah, no, I do think about the Roman Empire a lot, actually. Yeah, I am one of those guys. I'm sorry, but not in that way. I swear.
Sure. Okay.
Anyway.
Yes, I'm derailing.
So that was so stupid. And then he also has the line, so long as we remain animals, we shall be dominated by animal wants and animal passions and animal rivalries. And that seems like a hell. Yeah, exactly. And, Anton LaVey's like human animal thing, like that's kind of like the best version of that. Like we are animals. We're not distinct from animals. We are one of them. And our animal wants and passions and rivalries are real things. And that's pretty cool. And so you remember, we're about to start talking about animalism. Okay. The next two red sections are just anti-Semitism. I don't think there's that much interesting in that. He's just being anti-Semitic again. Yeah. And then there's an interesting, like this little phrase where he talks about the gods of heroes of antiquity submit their vital force in the destruction of monsters, in the seizure of new hunting grounds, in the slaughtering of tyrants, and in the breeding of unconquerable sons. And it's the slaughtering of tyrants is an interesting phrase. And I think, Felo, you were saying, how would this guy defend tyranny, right?
Yeah, it just I know we've been over and over about how it's not a contradiction because of the white supremacy. So it's the person I like doing the same thing that someone I don't like is going to be good for one and tyranny for the other. But just like, I write code and I feel like if I put this text into if I tried to compile it, like that kind of line would throw an error like, sorry, this text is defending tyranny. Did you mean
yes.
the laughter of tyrants?
Yeah, and the note that I made about it, back to you, was that I think tyranny is when bad things happen to reactionary white men, and the law of nature is when bad stuff happens to anybody else. And that is sort of the whole thing, right? Like,
yeah, tyranny is when you can't sell raw milk.
Yes. Okay. We're about to hit another like real rough patch of stuff. But I think if we can they just understand that the context of this is bad, but there's a good part that Jack pulls out of it. So we scroll down to the green. We're going to make Jack explain himself.
Yeah. So this one here in section 3, the fact that civilized man is gradually losing his senses if he continues to progress at the existing rate. In a comparably little while, he will have no smell, sight, or hearing. Okay, so I read that, obviously, probably in the 180-degree difference from what he actually meant. But when I read it, I was thinking to myself, like, we're anarchistic Satanists. We, like, when I read progress, I was thinking in a today's lens, like the cell phone, the, like streaming, looking at screens, losing our senses. If we just become like numb to like technology and just tune into the fucking phone and like don't look up around us, we will lose the sense of nature. We'll lose the smell of like grass in a field and the rain, petrichor, as I've just recently heard it called. So to that end, like, losing their senses at progress, I read that as meaning like, put your phone down, get up and walk around, like enjoy life for a little bit. But I'm pretty fucking sure he meant that in exactly the wrong way.
Yeah, you really were stretching that.
I was I was open, we're a nature-based, at least the Free Society is a nature-based satanic group. So when I heard that, I was like, man, like, I fuck with that. Like, we need to put our progress down, our phones down, and regain our senses, our sense of sight, our sense of smell. That was where I went with that. But I'm sure he meant it differently.
He definitely meant it in the completely literal way of dysgenic. That's what he meant. He meant that people, like human beings, are like devolving into something worse.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, that we lose, it's also like one of those things, like when you're having I don't know, a mental breakdown of some kind, like you're a panic attack, etc. Like some of the things of just like focusing on your senses, like it really does help to just like connect to your body. Like, what is my body feeling? What are my actual like senses and sense of being an existing creature with this life? It's important. And you were right to pull out something good from that, but we know he didn't mean that. And actually, to go to
in a chapter about cannibalism, racism, and dysgenics, I had to pick and choose where I could to find something good. So I guess that's what I did there.
No, I appreciate it, because this section 3, ends with the line, "It is good for a degraded people to be utterly consumed." And I think if it's not here, it's from another part of this book where Trevor Blake, who did the work of comparing all of the different sections, all the different editions, and tracking down like different quotes and stuff, he points out that well, what does Ragnar think about like the Anglo-Saxons getting defeated? Right? He somehow has read all this stuff and not realized that the dude's just a racist. But like he says these things about like degraded people, like conquered people, but still thinks that his Anglo-Saxon race that got conquered by the Norse and then the Vikings that came, Normandy, the Norman invasion, and the Danes and stuff, like they conquered the Anglo-Saxons, but he still holds the Anglo-Saxons up as being like the best white race, whatever. And Trevor Blake doesn't get that the dude's a racist, but we get like that solves every contradiction. The guy's a racist, and that's how he means everything that he says. Although okay, we're about to get into the history and cannibalism section, so we're gonna be skipping a lot. Jack, though, this was your one weird one, right? Towards the bottom of the page that starts off during the 11th century.
Yeah. Section 4, during the 11th century, man's flesh was cooked, sold, and eaten in England, and Englishmen may again revert anthropophagy if ever their imported food supplies be suddenly and entirely cut off. So I was thinking, first off, what proof does he give that such a widespread, rampant issue? I didn't pay the greatest amount of attention in history, but I think my ears would have perked up just a little bit if it got to the part where people were eating each other in mass. I don't know,
yes.
What proof? And the subject of what proof do you give also comes up in my bad one later on.
Yeah.
But of course, he doesn't need fucking proof,
And so I don't have access to the Charles Dickens article that he plagiarized this from. It could be that Dickens got it wrong. It could be he misread something. But you're right. This didn't happen. No such thing as this happened, as far as I could find anything. The closest thing I could find was looks like this link didn't work. There was a thing called the Siege of Mahara, which was a Crusader siege where they just ate the people inside when they either had finished the conquest or whatever. It's bad. It's an example of how the barbarians are somewhere else. No, Europeans ate lots of people. Trevor Blake gives the footnote that maybe he meant the way that Europeans would eat mummies. Again, this is the 11th century. This is way too early for that. But yeah, that is the thing that Europeans did. If people who didn't know this, all the time that Europeans were like, we can't send back the stuff to the places they came from, who knows what people will do with it? Europeans looted Egypt for a century and ground up mummies, dead people, and ate them for all kinds of fucking medicine and shit. So it's yeah. Abethy says, white history is just disgusting. Yeah, man.
I'd love to jump in real quick with a yes and book recommendation that helps explain some of this. the man-eating myth, Anthropology and Anthropophagia, by William Ahrens, Arens. It is a good, not overly academic text explaining that in criticism I've heard is that it's possibly slightly overstated, but still a good good bit of context, stepping through a lot of supposed and kind of taken for granted examples of cannibalism, especially like tribal cannibalism and things like that, and saying that they're virtually all unsupported. That the handful of examples that could be held up at all are the British eating mummies and things like in some traditions where it's a misrepresented, where it's actually a funerary rite to like honor the dead, not like a hunting people for sport kind of thing, as it's often portrayed. But that generally every time in our like, you know, explorers going out and writing about all these cannibalistic tribes they're encountering, they're either making shit up or they're taking the word of one group that's afraid of or doesn't like another group who is calling them cannibals and just going, oh, well, these guys said it, so that must be the case. And also pointing out that back to Might is Right, in the just cascade of examples he's giving in this just barrage of here's an example and here's an example, pretty much all of them unsupported. He makes very little distinction between instances of disastrous last resort survival and just supposed cultural norms, except to, at one point, to say maybe the former led to the latter, like, but otherwise isn't really saying I get why, giving any kind of distinction between those two kinds, except to say, like, I guess his point is like, we do it all the time. Everyone's eating everyone all the time, which, again, I recommend the man-eating myth for background on why that's simply not true.
I did drop that into the chat, and then Trinity Blair also offered a link for purchase for people that are interested in this. Yeah, so if you want to read for real stuff about how cannibalism has happened in history, that's a good book. This is not the book that is good for that. If we're good to jump down, there is a little oasis of a good thing that we can talk about. At the very end of section 4 says, the modern prelate does not employ the rude smoking gully knife, but uses other weapons 10 times more keen and more destructive. For every human sacrifice offered up in olden times, millions are offered now. You read that and you think, he must mean that's a bad thing. And it's not clear. In this case, I'm not sure if it means that in a bad way or a good way, but taken in a vacuum, it's a good couple of sentences. If we can jump down to
just reads like a blood for the blood gods.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he probably means it that way. This line that says, very intelligent New Zealand Aboriginals may still be found too, and then talks about how they eat people. This is one of the only like weird quirks that he has, is that he's from New Zealand and he seems to actually kind of like the Maori. Like, he seems to not be, let's call it, super racist at them. Like, he's still racist at them, but he thinks like actually they're kind of cool. This is the one group for him. And unfortunately, Trevor Blake, who is the guy who's putting the footnotes, is like, people call him racist, but he said this one nice thing about the Maori, and it's like, the guy, Ragnar Redwood just like eating people. And he found like some group he knew that apparently actually practiced cannibalism in this way, and was like, I think that's really neat. But then we've read all of the, not all of, but some of the racist stuff that he said about like whole groups of people, describing like their skull shapes and how you wouldn't want your children marrying them and so on and so forth. And just to point to this is like, actually he has complicated racism. Like, he doesn't really have like any racist you talk to will have like one group or one person they say like, actually I kind of like them, actually not all Jews are bad. Like, that doesn't mean anything. And it's just so frustrating to like have people like search out and like try to find like one nice thing they say. And it's like actually some of his best, not friends, but some of his best cultural groups or favorite cultural groups are not white. Like that's what this is. So I wanted to point it out because this is the sort of thing that gets pointed to. Like there's more to Ragnar Redbeard, Arthur Desmond than we can all see, and it's just really not. He's just a piece of shit. All right. The next thing is Jack again.
Oh boy.
Before we get to that, Trinity Blair says, just noticed the tattoo is spelled wrong 4 lines below the last yellow line. Yeah, there's a lot of misspellings. And this
Absolutely.
right here,
Yeah.
This man did not have an editor.
He did not. He put on another hat and another pseudonym and called himself an editor. But this is 1927. This was published in 1896 originally. And these errors keep getting in. They never really get fixed. Like not the ones that are factual, certainly, but not even stuff like the typesetting or the misspellings. So that's the level of quality that we're dealing with here. And people call this like a magnificent book that you should like go back to and, oh, it's so inspiring. Like it just fucking sucks. The thing that's interesting about it is that it sucks like in such an obvious way. And that's sort of how we're tackling it. But Jack, this is your bad one that we're looking at right there.
So this is my bad one, and this one pissed me the fuck off. For modern context here. Okay, so the bad one is all over the continental Europe, there is a popular superstition that Jew rabbis steal and murder Christian infants and maidens in order to use the blood on the door lintels at Passover and other ceremonials. So he not only tells you up front that it's superstition, he has no freaking proof of this, but he goes on to perpetuate like a lie and magnify the harm by causing people who don't read this book with a critical mind to like believe it, further causing like hate and harm to people he doesn't like. It's ignorant on its face, but it's harmful to people that don't actually even do the thing he's accusing them of. So the reason I say like in a modern lens, like you've heard this repeated like through the 30s, through the 40s, and like the Rockwell, like the George Lincoln Rockwell, the hatred of Jews, they'll just say the most outlandish shit. Like they steal and they murder Christian infants and use the blood. Like there's been variants of that, of like just the horrors that Jews do behind closed doors. And it's dumb for people who are going to read this and just don't have that critical mind to go, maybe this guy's full of shit. So it just perpetuates harmful and like hateful stereotype. It's bullshit.
And also, like, a very recent kind of variation of this was the whole they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
Yeah. When what was it? Fucking Vance, or was it Vance, or was it?
It was Trump that said it specifically, but Vance defended it. It was the Haitian immigrants in Ohio, I believe.
Eating the cats and dogs, yeah.
Yeah, which is, I think, Sire, were you going to say more about that?
Oh, no, I mean, I was just going to say that, because I think it speaks for itself. It's just, like, taking such an outrageous fucking accusation, throwing it against a group of people, and turning them into the, quote, enemy and the wrongdoer, and then it's like, oh, we have somebody to dogpile on, awesome. And then everybody starts dogpiling.
Yeah, and I think about the fellow's point earlier about how like this is usually just like taking the word of an enemy, because the very next section, or the very next example he gives is a similar charge was brought against the early Christians and even proved, quote unquote, in the imperial law courts if we are to judge by the verdicts. And yeah, like why even bring up the anti-Semitism thing? Because at that time, I think specifically it was the Austrian Empire. Like there were all these like panics. They were like saying like they would find like a dead woman somewhere and they would go, oh, it must be the Jews that did it. They must have like killed this woman for like a blood like that was a thing that was happening. So for him to casually mention it this way is not a neutral act. But even then, like you can see that like a lot of the examples of cannibalism are not true. Like the Christians weren't actually eating people. But their enemies said so and would even like quote unquote prove it by putting them through a formal system. Yeah, I don't want to get too hung up on here because I think this does take us into the green section to come pretty well. That says, is not the communion service allegorical anthropophagy? Is it not a pious periodical cannibal feast in more ways than one? Does not the wine symbolize human blood and the wafers typify human flesh? And so, like, I think this is not a new thing there, but he goes into, metaphorically considered, every trading Christian state is a meat market wherein the flesh, bones, and blood, not only of men, but of women and little children, are bought and sold daily, offered up nominally for the love of God, really for the love of dollars. Atrocities of the most revolting description are daily hourly occurrence, not only in Turkey and Siam, but in New York and Chicago, not only in Cuba and Port Arthur, but in London, Madrid, and Paris, not only in, I don't know where that place is, Mashonaland, and on the Congo, but in St. Petersburg and Berlin. Men, women, and little children are being everywhere starved slowly to the grave, worked till they fall down, driven insane by legislation, and even tortured to death inch by inch. And you read that, and you can kind of see the like labor history. Like, why was the guy in the labor movements in New Zealand and Australia? Why was he like attacking the system of cannibalism that was exploiting workers and the poor? And you see it there. And then you see there's a red section, because he goes on to say, great financial corporations backed by the state, directed mostly by Hebrews. That's it. So why does he have a problem with this metaphorical cannibalism when he loves like literal, actual eating people so much? Well, because he's saying this metaphorical cannibalism that is hurting all of these people, it's directed by the Jews, and they shouldn't be doing that. They're not the mighty, they're not the strong. They shouldn't do that. People like me that are like the strong and mighty, we should be able to do that. And that's sort of like the whole thing there. You think he's gonna come to some point. You think he's like, you can like pull something out of it, and you really can't, because his fundamental logic about the way that like the world works is that. We've talked about it, and it's such a really, it's a good quote. I mean, I think like those 3 paragraphs are not bad. Talking about like even in Christianity, this happens. But he's not actually saying what you want him to be saying. He's saying that like Jews run everything and Jews are bad. Does anybody else have anything more to say about that?
No, I think that's
I think you're right. I tried to meet it halfway and go, oh, is he saying that, well, look what they're doing, therefore how dare you criticize me for my cannibalism fandom? But no, I think it does make more sense as just like Jews are bad and look at this pretend cannibalism that's really awful.
So
yeah, but it's a good quote. It's a good quote if you like axiomatically understand human and animal suffering as inherently bad, because you go, yeah, man, it's bad, but unfortunately not the way he's meaning it.
So I thought of something just now. There are like cultures that think, if you somehow like take the life force of something else, you imbibe the power that life force had or whatever. And I'm probably giving him like way too much fucking like credit, right? But like maybe he's trying to say that white people are able to embody and take other people's quote-unquote power by cannibalizing them, so to speak, but other cultures and other people who are non-white can't do that because they're not white. They're not the quote-unquote superior, so they don't have that quote-unquote power. I don't know. Just a thought.
I mean, so where I thought you were going with that was that, like, if you get the power of whatever you're eating, then like Christians by doing communion are like filling themselves with the like awful pacifism of Jesus, right? He doesn't make that point either. But and to me, I was reading this like this came from a different essay or something he was writing, and he was just like, "This is already written. I'll just like fill out this chapter with that," because you could take it out and it doesn't really change anything. You know what I mean? Like that section, if you just remove it out, it just and here's some more examples of cannibalism. So I think it was probably like written a while back, and he just like reused it. I can't prove that, but like
no, that would make sense. Because it's just like this whole chapter is just so off the wall in comparison to everything else in this book thus far.
Here's some more people who eat stuff. If we can keep scrolling, I was going to point out that he just like talks about the Kinderawaz of India, and apparently that's not their name.
That's not. I mean, even in the footnote, that's not a group of people. Like, I don't know where they pulled this fucking word from. I think they grossly misheard something that somebody said and then called them. It's like a game of telephone, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't speak that language, you're not gonna like know what the hell's going on. Because I started Googling because I was like, there's no fucking way. Now, there is a sect of Hinduism. It's an extremely small sect in Varanasi, and they're called the Anguri, and like they kind of eat. They literally just like sit around like smoking weed, sitting in cemeteries, and like occasionally probably like eat a dead body, but but they don't hurt anyone. That's the thing. Like they're just chilling there in the cemetery.
Yeah, it's not what he's saying it is. And also, I was linking the footnotes. Trevor Blake says Redbeard perhaps contradicts himself, speaking poorly of these human carnivores, while elsewhere praising man, the king of the great carnivore, and celebrating all who rule. But I think Trevor Blake again just misses that. Like he's not contradicting himself. He thinks he should get to eat people. People like him should get to eat people, but people like him shouldn't be eaten, and that's kind of the whole thing. If we can scroll down, we have a good quote from Felo, who, if y'all didn't know, you're only supposed to pick one, and Felo was like, I love this chapter so much, I'm going to pick three.
The handful of things that stood out as, man, if only he meant this otherwise. Actually, this quote is very, very similar to the one that we just had above about the and even tortured to death inch by inch. So I actually want to comment on the paragraph we just moved on from, because I had a thought that I didn't quite articulate into a note, but where he says, just as packs of wolves fall upon any of their number that is seriously wounded in foray. So I think this is where a little bit of a light bulb went off for me. Like in the last chapter, I had the belated revelation of like, oh, it's all white supremacy all the way down. That's the key to understanding this entire text. Suddenly all the contradictions are no longer contradictions. But something I realized, like the reason that this can't be taken seriously as a philosophical system, even in that light, is because, and maybe the next few chapters will prove me wrong, but I doubt it, there's no moment where he goes, even I, dear reader, could be seriously wounded in the foray, and it would be my duty to be consumed by the stronger, better wolves around me. So much do I believe in these ideas I'm putting forth. He never considers that he could ever get weaker, ever get older, ever die. And I feel like this would be a more difficult text to grapple with if he had ever taken that position, but instead, this is all just so much like sadistic fantasizing. There's so much about listing out types of weapons, listing out types of violence, and just like, even before this chapter, I would have said salivating all over this stuff, but now literally that we are talking about cannibalism. And so I just wanted to point out that there's no point where he's like, yeah, if I'm ever not the strongest, then I, Arthur Desmond, Ragnar Redbeard, should fall, and I deserve to fall. In fact, those are the few moments where he's like, no, struggle even in defeat kind of things, because he can't imagine living by his own proposed ideas here. Sorry, I know we gotta.
Well, no, yeah, he's a loser, for sure, and he just doesn't ever present that. The fact that he, in reality, is a loser.
Boo! Boo this man.
Are you a vegetarian or a vegan?
I am a vegan.
Okay, in a chapter about cannibalism, Felo found the most green.
You know, I wanted to point that out as well, because I was like, You
want to tell us what's really going on, bud?
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Just projecting. I just want to, eat that long pork so bad.
We're getting deep into it, and we're about halfway through, so I'm gonna try to not keep people up too late tonight. If we can skip down to the next red section about American sheriffs. This just says, and this is going to be some strong language in terms of like what he's describing. American sheriffs and detectives hunt down tramps and criminals with specially trained bloodhounds, just as Russians hunt wolves and sheep farmers hunt coyotes and dingoes. It is no wise unusual for Negroes to first be, and then he describes torture. And he does this, I think, in a way that's important to point out that without any opprobrium, he doesn't think this is bad. He's describing it, I think, with relish in the same way. And it's an awful book, and I don't want to focus on this too much, but there are people who love this book and will tell you that it's like poetry, and it's not. He's just describing lynchings in the middle of this book where he's literally salivating about cannibalism. But Sai, we have a bad one for you. If you were to talk about it.
Okay, so periodically through this book, he'll just be like, yeah, these tribes, these men, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, and then women, and then the women will catch a stray. And so in this quote, for innate cruelty of deed, no animal can surpass women. It just seemed honestly like it's like a very incel take on the whole hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, which that quote is, indicating that, okay, the woman is scorned, therefore she has a reason to, be like, hey, this is fucked up and act accordingly. Whereas this quote is like, oh yeah, women are just cruel for cruelty's fucking sake. And that's like such an incel fucking comment. It's not even funny.
Yes. Yeah, and you thought you might be able to skip the misogyny chapter, but no, you will be back for...
yes, unfortunately.
Misogyny chapter. Bully for all of us. If we can jump down to the next green section, both Felo and I like this. And it's very similar to the one up above. In a sense, like maybe it came from an earlier essay or something. Allegorically speaking, the clothes we wear, the houses we live in, the food we eat, the books we read, have been carved by force out of other men's bones and flesh. Literally, they're the hide, sinews, flesh, pulp, and outer wood coverings of captive animals, transmuted by human slavery into garments, lumber, implements, thoughts, shoes, and daily dinners. Indeed, man's tushes are all against all other animate beings whatsoever, and in turn, their fangs are against him. I don't think that means butts. It means something else. Anyway, so it goes on, and as merrily as marriage bells, via victus, and behold, it is good. This world is no nirvana where peaceful pleasure flows. It is a gruesome butcher shop where slain men hang in rows. He ends that by talking about how good it is, but I think pointing out like the amount of suffering that goes into stuff all around us, the fact that like it is produced by slavery, and that hasn't changed that much. He goes on to be like, I love this. I think this is awesome. We're going to pretend that he didn't say that. That's the good part we're going to get out of it. Because he's not an ignorant person, despite all of the like bad, he has bad history. He's wrong, but he's not ignorant. He doesn't need more education because he's been educated enough to change his worldview, but instead he just knows all of this stuff, spits it out and goes, I love that. I love that for people like me, and I hate it for people, and I don't want people who aren't like me to rule over me. Ben says, this is from Charlie Kirk, all of it. He wrote this. Yeah, you would not be surprised, actually, Charlie Kirk said some of these things on his podcast. However, Felo, I was going to give this next section to you, the green one, because this is kind of...
I mean, you did make the joke first, but it's too good. Beginning of section 6. From the scientific point of view, it is but a single step from the eating of captive cattle, horses, sheep, hares, rabbits, deer, hogs, etc., to the eating of captive men. And I believe you put, but I wholly endorse, wow, a surprise endorsement of veganism.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. Like, yeah, he's been saying all this stuff. Like, that's gross. And if like that's gross, why are you eating animals? And he means it like, okay, so you're gonna have to stick with me here, guys. But I feel like the libertarians have a very good critique of the age of consent, and that like, oh, so you like drove from 17 to 18, like now it's okay. I think they are correct there. However, the lesson they should take from it is that maybe it's gross for 40-year-old men to be dating 19-year-olds too, right? Maybe it's gross that Leonardo DiCaprio is 50 and wants to date a 22-year-old. Maybe that's gross. That's not the lesson they take. They're like, I think 14-year-olds are hot. That's sort of what Ragnar's doing here. He's like, if you're eating sheep, why not eat people? That's the kind. That's what we're thinking with right here.
Yeah, everyone loves a meme format described in audio format, I've been told. So it's basically, I feel like over and over, where the Parks and Recs thing, where Aubrey Plaza is quoting huge chunks of this thing, and then we're sitting next to her going, and that's bad.
Yeah. Fellow, you have the next weird section, I think, coming up.
I sure did pull too much out of this thing.
Well, you sure did.
All right, let's see. Structurally, men are fashioned for purposes of inflicting suffering and pain. Every human anatomy is an elaborate nerve and bone and infernal machine, a kind of breathing, preemulating juggernaut, a superb engine of lethal immolation and automatically strokes its furnaces in the fires of its victims. Men rush upon each other, upon their prey, with the hoarse war shouts, bloodshot eyes, as prowling beasts the deserts and jungles do. Yeah, more just that kind of salivating and this just being sadistic fantasy more than actual philosophical treatise, but also, look, I've just been outed as the vegan, so I don't have much context for this, but can you imagine trying to go hunting with this guy? You're going to be set up in the blind. You and your buddies are going to barely have cracked your first beer, and he's going to be running around the woods screaming and chasing away all the wildlife.
Yeah, he's like, the military wouldn't take me. I was too crazy.
Yeah,
he's that guy.
Not a stealth build, this guy.
No. I was going to point out that the editor refers to the slur against the indigenous people, the former Washington football team name, as slang. I don't think that's slang. I think that's a slur. But we can go on down to Fellow. You have another weird one.
Oh God, why do I keep doing this? So the vicious Englishman thunders forth. Oh God, I didn't think about reading this out loud. So the vicious Englishman thunders forth with his hip hip hurrah while driving an elegant bayonet dagger into the liver of the wicked heathens, whose property thereafter he annexes as a matter of course, for business is business, don't you know? And I highlighted this because it seems so flippant that, like, surely we can agree that's bad, right? And I know the answer is no, but why'd you write it that way, Ragnar?
Because he's not very smart and he's not a very good writer.
I think this is him trying to tie in his really bad fucking poetry with his yo-ho bullshit earlier.
Oh, yo-ho, motherfucker.
Yo, this motherfucker. All right. If we can skip down, I don't really want to talk about the next yellow section that much. He says, just as itch-creating parasites burrow into our skin hide, so in turn, we may be unpleasant parasites burrowing in the hide of some nobler and grander being. So, like, he's kind of like doing the Gaia thing, but in maybe the worst way possible. It's weird. That also exists in here.
Tech bros reinvent God from first principles.
Yeah, it is that kind of thing. And also, he's been talking shit about superstition so long. This next section is my bad thing. And I'm not going to read all of it, certainly. But I for people who can see it on the screen, this is pretty bad. It says, as a full-grown citizen, he, which is like the real man, practices homicide with repeating rifle at moving targets, slaughters tame pigeons with chokebore breech loaders, hunts foxes, wolves, bears, pumas over mountain and mere, wades up to his neck in swamps to kill teal, and travels to far lands in search of big game and inward slur shooting. And it goes on from there. And I know I keep saying this, that like this is an awful book, this is a racist book. I mean, this is for the time awful. He knows it's not good because he's arguing with people who say this isn't how you're supposed to be. This is Chicago in the late 19th century. This is one of the hotbeds of anarchism and socialism in America at this time. And he's talking about this in this way, and this is bad. But I am more upset, endlessly upset, at people, be they from like the Church of Satan, be they with Lucian Greaves, Doug Masicko, taking this book, being very familiar with it, and just going, "Oh, what's the big deal?" I mean,
Right.
I don't understand how people can be like, "I'm not racist. I just think that this is morally neutral." I just think that you need to get over the fact that this guy is talking about like lynchings and like hunting black people for sport or whatever. Just get over it, and like fuck those people. Fuck every single Church of Satan member that listens to this and is like, "Oh, you little whiny baby, fuck you. You're a piece of shit." And if you don't get that, I mean, I'm in Seattle. We can have conversations about it, but like, fuck off. God. Anyway, I don't have a good literary reference for this. I'm a little heated. If we can skip down to the next red section with a little bit of yellow, I'm gonna give this to Felo actually to read out, just because you had the funny note about it.
Okay. The whole thing. Okay.
Oh no, just the yellow part.
Okay. Thus properly understood, Darwinism, and that is not very comforting doctrine for, and then fatphobic slur. I just put Ron Howard voice. He did not properly understand Darwinism.
Yeah, it's just a running thing that he's quoting Darwin's law constantly and just does not get it.
No, he even at some points calls it the survival of the strongest, which is Darwin went to great lengths to try and explain that it's not about physical strength, it is about suitability to your environment, which I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but a running theme that irked me repeatedly.
Yes. We're going down to Felo's next quote, which is that when not thwarted by artificial contrivances. This is what you found to be not worse than the racism, but
oh Jesus! All right, I'll try and make this other soapbox super quick. Also, when not thwarted by artificial contrivances, whatever argument nature promulgates is right. The further man gets away from nature, the further he departs from right. The right is to be right is to be natural, and to be natural is to be right. Fuck off. That is so it may not be on its face so clearly incorrect to everyone, but that we have a logical fallacy named after it, the naturalistic fallacy. And I go back and forth on not to keep name dropping, but Hume's ought is problem of you can't get an ought from an is, because I take it as axiomatic again that suffering is on the whole bad. But the reason I chose this as the worst, despite all of the racist shit, despite all of the xenophobic, all the anti-Semitic stuff, is because that right there is the abstract of this entire text, and it's wrong, and it needs to be understood as like wrong. Like this could be thrown out from that very premise.
It's very stupid, and it's not provocative, it's not anything, it's just bad. It should be self-evidently bad, but again, when you're who is 15 years old, when you're someone who doesn't have a lot of reading and you haven't been exposed to lots of stuff, it's not as obvious. And by the way, I apologize to all the 15-year-olds that are listening to this, and I'm shitting on you. I swear I'm not. It's just that like when you read another book, when you read like a lot of other books, things become more obvious than when you are reading books like this. If we can skip down, that's a fun quote. To base a lie upon a myth is certainly much safer than to base a lie on reality, for you cannot run a tape measure over a myth. I like that one. A Felo did not. I thought that was somewhat interesting to posit, that if you are starting with something that is like bogus from the jump and a myth, you can never be disproved. That's kind of interesting. If we keep going down to the next green section again, I don't think we need to get into it because this will turn into like the Christian like defense hour again. But he's basically saying that like no one who actually runs stuff is a real Christian, like no true Christian. And this shows up in Satanism as well because I also remembered Anton LaVey in the Church of Satan sometimes saying that like historically, like all of like the people were secretly Satanists or whatever. Like sometimes they'll go on Twitter and say, no, actually Mike Pence is a Presbyterian or whatever. But other times they'll be like, everybody that's cool and good is a Satanist when you think about it. And this is sort of that, but from a guy who, I don't know, he shits on Christianity so much, but then most of the people he likes end up being Christians, like Oliver Cromwell, and he doesn't ever really deal with that. Anyway,
He does briefly say that people like Cromwell couldn't actually be Christian. They must just be, because I like them, they must just be using it as a tool of control.
Even though Cromwell, like famously, one of the most Christian guys you can possibly be, like that was kind of his thing, but he was super Christian.
Yeah.
If we can skip down to the next green section, it's too big to read. And also, I just want to talk about this because I was doing this in public. I was highlighting this stuff in public, and I was trying to explain to people like how I was highlighting it. And then, like, thankfully, I already had the like slur like blacked out, right? But I was like, yeah, so this is one of the good sections. And they're like, what? It's like, yeah, this is so what this green section is saying. The Romans first appear in history as a gang of banditti, the English nest of pirates, and he goes on. And the example he gives for Americans is pious anarchists, which is not true, and inward stealers. But his point is that like all states begin with like this like criminal nature, this like people that are like robbing stuff and being brutal and terrorizing people. And if we keep going down a little bit more,
that's bad.
Right. Well, yeah, we're reading that going, yeah, that's bad. That's why the state is fundamentally illegitimate and violent. The policeman's loaded truncheon, the hussars, I think, never mind, slicing saber, and the artillery company's field piece are still the motto, are still the ultima ratio of order, liberty, and peace. The Maxim gun is a development and a decided improvement upon the old-time bludgeon. And you're like, yeah, that is true. Like that's just the same thing, but like they're whatever. And he goes, and that's awesome. It's so cool that the state has weapons that they can just like mow down mobs of people. I love that. God, I hate this guy so much. Because like you think, oh, he's just saying it like it is, and then it's just like, and I think it's awesome that states are violent and crush people. Not me, not people like me, but those other people. That's him. Yeah, if we keep going down a little bit more, law, courts, and thrones are de facto built upon bayonets. Likewise, all statutes, constitutions, and moral codes are written by the sword. That would probably get a retweet from me if I saw it on Collectiva or Blue Sky or whatever. But that's why you got to kind of look at the context of somebody's life and their belief system. If we keep scrolling down, there's another thing where he says that European land title deeds may be in every instance traced back to military and kingly power. In all the English colonies, wastelands are occupied and cleared under crown grants, the same principles in this republic and among all savage tribes. But somehow he still like supports this stuff. It's just weird, right? It's weird that he can like be this knowledgeable about like the source of power and how all laws are doing this. But then just like still justify it after the fact. So to people who say we just need to do a better job educating, clearly that is not the case. No, is there anything in the rest of this that people wanted to talk about in particular? Because I feel like we've gotten kind of like we've tried to skip out on most of the cannibalism, but is there anything new in the rest of this? I mean, we're at what, section like 8 right now, and there's still like another like 8 or 9.
It's like we're like at the beginning of section 10, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I think we got the hits, and I have a question for like the whole thing kind of broadly that I wanted to get to, but I'm flipping through. I don't see any specifics I wanted to hit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, that's really racist. that's like, oh, the generation of the races. It's like, yeah, okay, we kind of covered that.
He invokes other racists being scientifically racist, and it's bad, and not science and all racism.
Yeah, Fellow, I see one. There's another one for you, and you love this chapter, Fellow.
Oh boy.
The everywhere King's bludgeon is cracking skulls, and with the bloodhounds, Americans hunt each other. The hands of congregations of the faithful are red with the blood of the innocent. Yet how they boast of being washed clean in the blood of their brother, the Lamb. What was that? What stood out to you about that?
I was just like, man, if this was coming from anyone else, like, yeah, okay, that's a good like a critique of Christian hypocrisy and holier than thou attitude. Unfortunately, again, it's coming from this source. But yeah, I guess my point was just let me see what my note was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not only a good critique of like uh Christian hypocrisy, but also I put that I'm surprised that didn't catch Tony's eye, which leads right into the thing I wanted to get to, so I can knock it out of the way real quick. I noticed that I believe last chapter was the last one where Anton LaVey pulled stuff for the Book of Satan. Is that correct?
As far as I can tell, yes. So he plagiarized the entire first section of the Satanic Bible, called the Book of Satan, is a product of extensive plagiarism from the first 3 chapters of Might is Right.
Yes.
But after that, like there's like in this section, like the very end of it has that B as a line on the path, and he uses his like hate thine enemies with the whole heart, but the phrasing is from when it was earlier in the book. So
yeah, same with there's the whole heart. There's also, I thought I saw somewhere in here the if they smite you on one cheek, like, or if they slap you on one cheek, smite them on the other, somewhere in here. But I think that
yeah,
was
he's
also
reusing what he said before. Yeah.
So at the risk of being quasi conspiracy theory, what we have so far in this chapter, just to pick out some highlights, we have is not the devil really cool? Actually, we have several references to lions. We have a reference to risk of humans losing their sense of smell, and we have aren't Christians such hypocrites? And LaVey didn't use any of those. Did LaVey not finish reading this book?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Would not surprise me in the slightest if he did not.
Poser!
Yeah. Like, so you're saying we're gonna get the strongest argument we can to Anton LaVey. He got this chapter 3 and he was like, this is so racist, this is so bigoted, I'm gonna finish this chapter and take stuff from it, but no more for me.
No,
is that what we think happens?
No, my conspiracy theory goes like, I think there's already a decent argument that like LaVey didn't sit down and was like, I'm gonna write a satanic Bible. This is my passion project. That's what everyone needs. It was in fact an agent from Avon Publishing that came to him and was like, "You're so hot right now. We need you to write something for us to publish. Have you considered writing a satanic Bible?" And he went, sure. And I think threw together a bunch of stuff from his various writings, from things like the Cloven Hoof, and I think even older stuff from his Magic Circle, which was his like proto Church of Satan, as and so the stuff in the middle is his, and then he just like tacked on a bunch of John Dee nonsense in the Enochian Keys, and then needed like a strong punchy opener, and I don't know if it was Avon or him that was like, hey, you need more than this to make a book. And I think he just reached for something that he thought had like punchy poetic language, and unfortunately for all of us, Might is Right is the thing that came to mind, and he like pulled stuff from it until it met some kind of page requirement, and like someone writing an essay and paying attention to word count just went, all right, there. I'm done.
Sai, can you scroll all the way down to the last page? The B is a line on the path. The B is a line in the path. Just like he could, because you're right that like this seems like the sort of thing that he would have like taken. Because I don't think the like blood for blood and blow for blow stuff is in the Zedek Bible, and this does seem like the exact kind of thing that he would have taken. But let's double check. Yeah, and this is his like his poetry sort of thing. This is like he likes fucking rhyming, and I don't know. I hate this book so much. And we skipped over some stuff that was again like retreading, but like even if you were to take out the racism explicitly, like he still says that like all of the most orphans had alcoholic parents, like that's why they're that way. And he doesn't say like fetal alcohol syndrome. He's like the people who suffer, they deserve it. Like people that are poor deserve it. And just like there's no way to clean this up, even though they did blow for blow. Yeah. Okay. He took this from chapter 2, the give blow for blow, scorn for scorn, doom for doom with compound interest, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. He has this sort of thing that's in there, but he takes it from a previous part. So he may not have read it. I also have the conspiracy theory that if mainly what happened was that this book got edited into something, then maybe his editor, Diane Hegarty, deserves more credit than we've given her. That like if what is in the Zedek Bible was like a product of like choosing stuff and changing the punctuation and changing the words around a little bit, not that much, but a little bit. I don't even know how much he did it if he wasn't the one editing his own book. Maybe he did. But even when you take out these things and try to like make it look and sound good, and it's still like at its root, like the fundamental thing is this horrible stuff. And like I guess I'm glad that modern Satanism doesn't have references to cannibalism in it. There's like, hey, what if we ate people? Wouldn't that be cool? I'm glad it doesn't have references to like lynchings and like hunting black people. Like that's good, I guess. Right. But yeah, this is still like where it comes from. And we skipped like and when for people who were like watching, we were like scrolling through in red. That was just like especially bad stuff or somewhat more interesting bad stuff. But like this entire chapter, if it's not highlighted, it's either really boring or bad, and oftentimes it's both. And I thank you for people who have been here, who have like, you know, suffered with us as we go through this. It's just, this is what reactionary politics is. And I don't think it's like dangerous or scary in the sense that like it's forbidden knowledge. It's really easy to understand knowledge. It's not really esoteric at all. Sometimes they'll have like different terms for stuff, but like the thinking on it is kind of pretty simple and easy to grasp. And it just doesn't go anywhere good. I don't have like a nice like wrap up for this, but like the dude wrote an entire chapter on human cannibalism and it is boring. And that's incredible. Like that's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, I know, right? Imagine that.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any last thoughts as we go through here?
No.
I think that's pretty much got it there. Well, guys, we have wrapped up. We're starting on the back 9 of this book here. Might is right. That was chapter 4, Man the Carnivore. 2 weeks' time, we're going to be doing the Chief End of Manhood. I was thinking he was going in more of a crypto bro stance, but I guess he's just going to go the End of Man here. Just based on what we've seen before, we've already hit all the highlights. I thought he was going to go crypto, but I guess that's a little bit before his time. But anyway, we're going to have everybody's links in the show notes. Make sure to go check out Capital Area Satanist. Check out Queer Satanic. We're going to have all of the links down below. Until next time, though, hail Satan and hail thyself.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
This is for the devil dogs. Satan, 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 our Lord and Master.